We all know that in the world of business, negotiations can get pretty intense, but there's a really fine line between driving a hard bargain and using pressure that's actually illegal. Today, we're going to find out exactly where that line is.
So what really is the difference? It's a huge question, right? Doesn't matter if you're closing a multi-million-dollar deal or just hashing out the terms with a new supplier. How do you actually know when you've pushed too hard? Or maybe when the other side has gone way over the line?
Well, thankfully, the law doesn't just leave us guessing. It draws a very clear line in the sand, and it gives us a specific name for when negotiation tactics go too far. It's called illegitimate pressure. Okay, so this is the big concept we're unpacking, illegitimate pressure. It sounds a bit formal, I know, but you can basically think of it as the official term for when hard bargaining turns into illegal bullying. And we're not talking about someone's feelings getting hurt here. We're talking about crossing a very real, very established legal boundary. So how does the law figure out if that line's been crossed? Well, it actually gives us two clear and distinct ways that pressure can become illegitimate. The first is through unlawful threats, and the second is through something called unconscionable conduct. So let's break those down. All right, let's dig into the first path, unlawful threats. Now, this one is often the most direct and honestly the most straightforward of the two. The pressure here is usually pretty explicit and easy to spot. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's when one party threatens to do something illegal just to force an agreement. A classic example would be threatening to breach a totally separate contract unless the other side signs this new deal. It's a very direct, if you don't do X, I'm going to do Y. And Y is something they have absolutely no legal right to do. Now for the second path. And this is where things can get a little more nuanced. We're moving away from a single direct threat and looking at the overall behavior itself. This is all about unconscionable conduct. Unconscionable conduct is a really powerful legal idea. It describes behavior that is so harsh, so oppressive, or just so unfair that it goes against good conscience. It's not just about being tough. It's about being so out of line that the law steps in and says, no, not okay. So you can really see the difference when you put them side by side. An unlawful threat is a specific illegal act. It's blunt, kind of like dynamite. But unconscionable conduct, that's more like a spider's web. It's about exploiting someone's weakness. Maybe they don't have all the information or they're in a tough financial spot, and taking advantage of that in a way that is just fundamentally unfair. Now, this whole two-part test, it isn't just some abstract theory from a textbook. It was actually forged in real-world courtrooms. It's built on a foundation of major legal cases that really shaped the law that we have today. We can actually trace this whole framework back to specific court cases. There were these landmark cases, like one from 1993 and another from 1996, that were just pivotal. In these decisions, the courts had to draw this very line, and in doing so, they cemented this two-part test for illegitimate pressure right into commercial law. So let's bring this all together. What is the key takeaway here? Why does understanding this legal line actually matter for you in your day-to-day business? Here's the most important thing to remember. You have to be mindful of these two huge red flags at the negotiating table. On one side, you have that explicit dynamite of an unlawful threat. On the other, you have the subtle spider's web of unconscionable conduct. Being able to spot these tactics from others and avoiding them yourself is what makes sure the deals you make are not just profitable, but legally solid and enforceable. So we'll leave you with this final thought. Every industry has its own culture, its own kind of unwritten rules for negotiation. Now that you know the official legal standard, take a second to think about your own world. Where does your industry really draw the line between a tough bargain and illegitimate pressure? It's a super important question to ask yourself before you sign that next big deal.